taught all there is to know about taking a life. But giving a life, bringing someone into the world, caring for a child.
You're so beautiful.
You're on your own.
Well, we literally locked the picture less than 2 months ago, so it's been this whole year just editing and doing the soundtrack and scoring and editing and more scoring and color grading and editing and re-editing, and yeah, it's
Not to jump ahead to the score, but it's got an A+ score. I feel like the theme for your
good.
character almost has this like a booming The Shining type feel. I just really enjoy those sounds.
Yeah, we definitely wanted Nikki's theme to be strong. So when you hear that, damn, boom, you know it's gonna go down. Like you know something's gonna happen.
I need that to play every time I walk into a room, and I'll be really good. I'll go back to the beginning now and ask you a little bit about signing on. First, from the perspective of an actor, when this material first came your way, is there anything about it that made you stop and go, like, I would have something to gain from this as an actor who's always looking to challenge myself in new ways and evolve my craft?
You know, when I got this script, definitely, you know, for me, there's always something, it has to like resonate, and like what can I bring to it in a sense that that is like immediately I can feel that, oh, this is something I could really bring something to. And the script was very different when I got my hands on it. It was beautifully written, but it was all in Korean, and it was kind of translated. I don't know, kind of felt like a little bit translated by ChatGPT, maybe. So you know, but the essence of it was so powerful, which is really like the relationship of the nightmare that a parent goes through when their child is taken from them. And in a way, for me, what I found that I could do with this is like, I sit up at night thinking of what I would do to somebody that took my kid, and here's my opportunity to make a movie where I can actually, you know, put that out there and get that out of my system. While also highlighting something that is, you know, so prevalent in this country, and you know, just so prevalent everywhere right now in some of the highest circles of society. It's really, you know, crazy. Yeah.
Now to look at the other hat that you wear on this production. You're not only the star of this movie, you're also a producer on it, and I'm always curious to hear about this part of the process. When the material comes your way, at what point do you figure out I can best serve this movie by not only starring in it, but also serving as a producer too?
Well, you know, for me, when I realized that it needed to be rewritten to kind of not just to condense it, to kind of get to the meat of it and simplify it so that the concept really would be able to be something that would come across to an audience in like 90 minutes. You know, it was much more sprawling. I mean, the original, I think, took place in Bangkok. And many other places. You know, so I wanted to bring it to a place where we could make it for the amount of money that we had as well, but also make it well. And, you know, I've been very lucky to work with our DP and the cameraman, Vern Nobles, on many of the films I've made in the past with my husband. And he happens to live 15 minutes away from our house. So we called Vern and said, hey, listen, you know, there's this film, and we need you because we need cameras. And he just happens to collect cameras. So he literally has like 15 cameras in his garage. So he took his U-Haul, and he had just worked with the director, Adrian Grünberg, on Rambo, Last Blood. And he said, you know, there's this great director that I think would really bring a lot to the film because, you know, we have a very short shooting schedule and we need someone who knows what they're doing, who knows how to shoot action really well, and who knows how to keep to a budget and keep to a timeline. And of course, that's super important. So we were able to bring this team together that was very close, that had worked together before. So, you know, a lot of films, I feel like they start and nobody really knows each other. It's like starting a new company. And by the time you wrap, it's like a well-oiled machine. But at the beginning, it's like everyone's still getting to know each other. And here we had that kind of core team that knew how to work together. We had experience of over 10 years working together. And, you know, so I think that really helped. And of course, you know, having such an awesome cast and being able to get such great actors, you know, being able to shoot in Las Cruces where so much of this actually happens, you know, it was incredible to really be able to take this film and make it as gritty and raw and realistic as possible and really stay, you know, I think there's been such an overwhelm with just big visual effects movies, and I'm part of the problem, you know. You know, I've done a lot of them, so for me it was actually really fun to go back to the basics and really use the practical effects, really make sure that my fight sequences were something that a woman trained as I was in the special ops, in the military, using our close friends who were military advisors on other films that I'd been on, to really develop the character from the ground up, and make sure that the style of fighting that Nikki had was something that a woman could do. It wasn't just about like, oh, let's do some wire work and fix it in post and do some, you know, Hong Kong flips and some butterfly kicks and some crazy martial arts, you know, which actually I on my first day, there was a lot of that. And I was like, okay, guys, calm down. You know, like, this is different. This character needs to be real. And I want to portray her in a way where any woman watching this with the experience that, you know, with that military experience, any woman, let's say in the military watching this with her experience would be like, oh yeah, I could do that. It's not just, I mean, obviously it's a movie and obviously it's action packed and it's supposed to be exciting and fun to watch Nikki kick ass. But it's really rooted in reality, which I love, and it's got that gritty feeling to it, that raw, practical, you know, we did it ourselves feeling. I mean, when I was hanging upside down, that wasn't makeup. You know, I literally was a newborn baby, like purple and blue. Like, that was not makeup. That was for real.
There was something Adrian said in our press notes about that really wowed me. He was saying that you can hang upside down for about 1.5 minutes and then you start to get dizzy, but you did it for 4.5 minutes worth of the cameras rolling. Like, how do you do that?
You know, well, I felt fine, first of all. I wanted to get it because it was like 2:00 in the morning. We had to wrap in a few hours, and it was like one of the most important scenes in the film. And it's such a beautiful, I mean, it's so beautifully shot as well. I mean, it's such a great sequence. I really wanted to get it right. So a lot of it was just because I was hanging upside down, and every time they would put me down, everyone would disperse, everyone would go get coffee, go to the craft truck and talk and this and that. And, it would take like half an hour to get everybody back and get me up there again. So at one point I was like, no, just keep rolling. And like, okay, now we have 2 cameras. So at this point, I'm talking to the other actor, Manny. I said, Manny, at this point, take my head, but be aware of where the camera is. So just like turn my head so that, and don't block me because the light is there. So, and it was just really so much in a way, like you would do it on stage. I mean, it was just one long scene, and we just continually reset so that at the end it was almost choreographed in that sense, to where we knew each beat so that the cameras and us were all in sync and we could just like get it done.
I have so many stunt specific questions. The first thing I'll give you is you kind of leaned into this a little bit before, but I love highlighting the broad strokes of stunt training and how challenging that could be. But I like getting a little more specific about it and understanding what it takes to fight like someone with this kind of military background. So given all the action movies you've done, do you come into this project kind of like mostly prepped, or are there any specific things you really have to brush up on to get just right for this kind of person?
For me, the action was some of the most challenging I've ever done in a film, period, because it was really happening. It wasn't like, oh, we'll do it in post, we'll fix it in post, like, oh, it's a green screen, like, oh, let's just get the double in. But yeah, I mean, I have 30 years of experience of being an action hero. And so I come with that experience. I think what really sets this movie apart for me was that I was, as a producer, had the ability to really tailor the action sequences to Nikki's character. So it wasn't just kind of like redundant and, didn't feel it didn't feel generic in that way. It felt like real and it felt different from the movies I had made before. It felt like that's Nikki Halsted. That's the way she fights. There was a lot of things that I learned and that we all learned when we had to kind of like fix the way we were looking at it, which was not, this isn't about taekwondo, this isn't about wushu, this isn't about, big flourishing stuff. This is about tight combat. This is about using your mind. This is about really taking people by surprise. This is really about using your wits, using your, being sharp, being fast. And that, people I think really underestimate the element of surprise. I think in most fights, number one, you end up on the ground. But in reality, like, you have to do what people don't expect, because that's really like you win half the battle just by like putting people off. And I think that's what she does in the end, is that using her skills, but at the same time using her brain to be able to really have the element of surprise on her behalf and using it to the best of her ability,
So many follow-up questions. Let's see if I can remember them all. You emphasized before that some of the stunts you did in this movie were some of the most difficult of your career, and it made me want to ask this. Of all the movies you've made, is there any particular stunt from a past film that you would deem the toughest, and how does the toughest in this movie compare to that?
Well, this isn't the first time I've hung upside down. But again, in the past, it has been easier because, we had more money, we had more time. we had more cameras. It was just, we had more freedom to, as the action sequences, like for instance, in the Resident Evil movies, we would have days to do them. This we would have a few hours. So we'd be shooting and we shot for 23 days and literally, over 3 weeks of that was nights. So it was really hard for me on my body, because I think when you're shooting nights and then it's 6-day weeks and then you have that 1 day to recover, and usually that 1 day was spent talking to my military advisor, Natalie Malou. She's a lieutenant colonel in the Army. And, really thinking about now we've shot this. And we were lucky because we got to shoot a lot of it like in the order that you see it in. And so there was a lot of thought that went on where it was like, okay, now I've shot this. So are we going to just go by what's in the script? But like, maybe we need to change it. And so there was a lot of just talking with the director and talking to the writer and being able to like on the spot change dialogue, change where Nikki's coming from, what she does in a certain situation. Like that whole scene with Sullivan where I shoot his kneecaps off. I mean, that was something that happened literally on the day because of the fight where I said, I don't like to repeat myself. And I was like, well, let's do that again, because at this point, this guy is like pissing me off. He's not answering my questions. And now he's down on the floor and she's going to kill him anyway because he deserves it. So, let's make it brutal. Let's make it real. And also, I'm not one for just gratuitous violence in that sense. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. I love horror. I love the fun of it. But this movie, I did not want the violence to feel gratuitous. I wanted the violence to feel satisfying and validating. And I wanted every person watching it to go, I would have done the same thing. It's just something that just comes from your gut where you just want to destroy somebody.
Great success in that respect. Of all of the ambitious set pieces you have to do in this movie, going into filming, which did you think was going to be the most challenging for you? And ultimately, was it, or did a different one catch you by surprise?
I don't know how many of you, and this is a question for the audience, because I'm really interested, coming from, the writing and the editing and did you guys see the ending coming? No. Nope. Good. Well done. Good. Because for me, through the editing process, that was one of the things that there was always talking with the other producers about, like, how much do we show? And like so many times in cinema, and especially I think, not to say anything adverse about Western cinema, but it almost feels like people feel like they need to like spoon feed it to an audience. And I really felt like I wanted people leaving the theater with questions. And I didn't want to put this like big bow on it. This is like a woman that's suffered such trauma in her life. And I think in the end, it wasn't about the action sequence. It wasn't about killing the bad guy at the end. Like, I guess, for me, that happens, but actually that's not the end of the movie. That's not the reality. The reality is, what it is. what you saw. And that was so hard. You know, for me, being a mother of 3 girls, obviously, like, you know, it was something that I really felt like I needed to tell this story. You know, I needed to, and you know, it was really important for me, like when my eldest daughter watched the movie, to see it, because, you know, I did it for her, you know, and I wanted her to know, like, how hard it was for me to make, because I was thinking about her the whole time, you know, the scene where I finally find her, and you know, I was just sitting on my phone and looking at all these pictures of her as a baby and growing up and getting ready to, like, do the scene. And I mean, you know, emotionally, it's crazy because I'm not a method actor in any way, but at the same time, I feel like every character you do leaves an impression on you, and changes you, because you do end up living in someone else's shoes and seeing through their perspective, no matter who they are. So it does kind of change you in a way. But, you know, coming to this film as a producer as well, and, you know, my husband, like, produces all of our movies, and I'm constantly asking him, I'm like, why do you need to, like, do that again? Why do you need to go to the sound edit? Why do you need to, like, go to the color grade? Why do you need? And then suddenly here I am, you know, doing what he does and understanding, like, oh my God, if I'm not there, that's what the movie's gonna look like. And if I'm not there, that's what it's gonna sound like. And if I don't, like, take it and just kind of hold it close and, like, really work on it to the best of my ability. I mean, you know, my God, this whole last summer, I mean, we were on vacation, and I tell you what, I mean, I know a lot of people say after vacation, you need a vacation, but, like, we had, like, 3 kids on vacation, but we were waking up at 4 a.m. because our sound engineer and Don Cheryl, who did the soundtrack with us, he's a fabulous musician, and he was also a cameraman. He's also a friend of Vern's. You know, I mean, it was like everybody did everything. It was amazing. But, you know, he's on the East Coast. We were, you know, on the West Coast, so it's 3 hours ahead for him. So we would be waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning just to, like, sit down and go through the sounds of, like, you know, stupid, like, simple things where you go, like, what does a slide sound like? Like, that slide just sounds so, like, yeah. Like, it sounds like, no, you need, like, the slide to be like, like, you know, there's, like, so many slides that you can have, and you never realize how difficult that is until you actually experience it, and you realize how different a movie can be when you give it that love and you give it that energy and that time. You know, especially not just with my scenes, but with the scenes in the police station, with the scenes with the other actors, the scenes that I wasn't in, to really be able to, like, keep the momentum going, to have the right music, to make sure that the way it was cut together to form the relationships that I knew were there, but, like, just needed to be found. Because as an actor, I think it gave me a really great upper hand, because I was looking for performance. And a lot of times, you know, I would find moments that you wouldn't even think. It was like a moment, even sometimes, where the actor didn't even know they were being filmed. They were just reacting. And, like, I was like, that's real. Like, in the end, it doesn't matter what you're doing. And this is a great story my mom told me when she was in film school in the former Soviet Union. And she was watching this senior actor on stage, and it was like the last kind of show of, before the graduates of that year, they would do their big performance, and he had this big speech, and, at the end he did this pause, and everybody was just watching him to like, what is he thinking, And then he finally said the line, and everybody was just like overwhelmed. And after the show, they came up to him and they said, "But what were you thinking when you took that pause?" And he goes, "You see those lights at the end of the theater? I was counting every single one." And I mean, the fact is, it sometimes is as simple as just being real. It's not about, emoting or pretending or, method acting. It's just being real, just doing something real. Sometimes when I'm doing a scene, I'll pinch myself, just something to like get a reaction that I know is going to be, that's going to make my face do something, that's going to, it might not be like respectable. I don't know. It's not like method, but it's real. And for an audience watching a movie, you need to make it real for them. And in the end, we're making movies. We're not living real life, right? So we don't need to really do drugs to play a drug addict. We just need you to believe that through our ability to trick you, right? It's smoke and mirrors, and it's the ability to have the education and the experience to make those smoke and mirrors work so well that people have that, wow, like they believe it, and in the end, that's what performing has always been about from the very beginning, from when people were on stage doing vaudeville, and it was just that magic of bringing people into a story and having them live with you through it and having you believe it, not because like the special effects were the best. It was just because it was a great story, and the actors like were giving you something real, and you went with it, and you bought it because you wanted to. Yeah, so I mean, but this movie, it took a lot out of me, and it just very recently, I mean, here I am still in the middle of it, just about to, it's going to get released finally, finally it's going to be behind me, not in a bad way, but just in a way of like, I can release it and move forward with my life, because it's kind of I've been obsessed with it for the year, and I need to take a step back and put Nikki to bed, finally.
I'm going to toss it to the audience in a minute, but I'm going to ask one more question. And for anyone out there who watches Collider Ladies Night, we always end those interviews with this particular one. And the way you're describing just like how all in you were with this production and how close to it you've been for so long is making me want to ask you this right now. And before I ask the question, I will just stress that when we were watching the credits, every single name you saw of the utmost importance. Making a movie is a team effort, and every single one of those people is invaluable. But I find that in film and television, not enough of us stop to tell ourselves good job nearly enough. So I want to know something that you accomplished making this movie that you're always going to be able to look back on and say to yourself, like, I'm so damn proud of what I did there.
It's such a funny question. I mean, it's a great question, because I think I am really hard on myself, and I guess, in the end you do your best, and I know I did my best to make this movie the very, very best that it could be. And the story moved me. And, everybody involved worked so hard. And I'm so grateful to the cast and to the crew for putting their all, for coming back to do some reshoots for free, literally like in our home. People were there, like for real. Like even when we were filming, a lot of times, they'll say action and, some of the crew will like check their phones and this and that. Like people were watching, people were there with us. But yeah, I mean, it's the first movie I've ever taken from point A to point Z. And I am really proud of it. I am really proud of it. Regardless, some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it, like everything. Not everybody. That's the business I'm in, right? It is what it is. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. But it was a chance of a lifetime, and I never expected that I could do something like this. I never in my life expected that I could do something like this. So yeah, I am very proud of it.
As you should be. All right. See if we can get a question or two in. I see that hand right there first. Introduce yourself before your question, please.
Jerry Cohen. To the hell of it, the number 13 of how many people you killed was prevalent in the beginning. Did anybody ever figure out how many people you did kill throughout the movie?
You know what? My dad is a great person who will be able to answer that because he keeps a really good body count. Because every time I call him, he's like, "Kiddo, how many did you kill today?" And so I know he's going to be keeping score. But listen, I hope I don't lose my my crown as the reigning queen of kick-ass with this movie.
Never. All right, I see a hand right there.
Okay, first of all, I absolutely fell in love with you in The Messenger.
Thank you.
One of my favorite all-time movies. My guy friend was like, "What are you talking about? You haven't seen that? Wait till you see the decapitation scene."
Thank you. I mean, listen, not many people have seen the movie, so thank you.
Greatest film ever.
Thank you. Wow, thank you.
But again, taking you way back, what made you decide to go from modeling to acting? What was the draw? What was the attraction?
I mean, listen, acting was something I was always going to do. My mother was an actress. We came to America with nothing, and she taught me what she knew because she realized that we needed some way to make our way in a new country. She didn't speak the language. She was young, and she was gorgeous and so talented, but she wasn't going to find work in a new country, so she kind of put all of her energy into me. So I never really had a choice of what I was going to do because I had a family to support, and that was always very ingrained in me from a very early age, was that like we all have to do our part to help our family like make it, to move forward in a new country.
It just seemed like you were so big as a.
But at the same time, like if you look at my early work, like the Blue Lagoon, for instance, or I was 14 years old when I did that press tour, just turned 15, and I got ripped to pieces. I mean, the kind of things that grown people said about a child, like how horrible I was, what a horrible actress I was, And I'm in the middle of a press tour, and I'm having to read these reviews and then go on national television and try and hold my head up and be professional. And it gave me a really big chip on my shoulder for a long time. You know, I thank God I had music. I love to sing, I love to write, and I had something else to do to kind of take my disappointment in myself and you know, knowing that my mom was this amazing actress and I could never live up to her, you know, and here it was the proof. And at a time in a kid's life that's so pivotal when you're a teenager, you know, it was very hard. You know, I think it really definitely made me who I am, and it's still like things that I'm dealing with today of trying to like love myself and accept myself and go, you know, you've done a lot of good and inspired a lot of people with your career, and to remind myself of that, because that, in the end, that girl who got those bad reviews is still there. Yeah, and going, you know, it was, am I really, will I ever really be good, you know? And I,
Exactly the point that she was saying about giving yourself credit, give yourself grace.
yeah, I mean, I do feel like this film was one of the first of my career where you kind of see not the real me, but definitely a part of who I can be. Like not the fun me, but the me that like in a disaster scenario, like my family will laugh because there's been times where we went on vacation and there was a tsunami warning, and I started hiding food under the table, and then they were like, it's coming, and I was like, and I took my hand luggage and I started walking like 50 feet up, and I was like, come on, family, we're going 50 feet up, as if like that's gonna save us, you know. But like, you know, that part of me that's like, I'm gonna take care of my family no matter what, and it's just this calm, and that's what I love about Nikki, is that, and I find in a lot of parents and with myself as well, like in some of the most kind of traumatic situations with your kid when they get hurt or in the hospital, you get this calm. Like you don't panic because you have to take care of your child. So you can't be like, right? So it's almost like, you know, in the shark, when their eyes glaze over and you just like have to do what you have to do. And that, I think, is so what Nikki is all about, until that one moment where she almost dies and she snaps. And that was the one moment where I wanted to show like her like let go, you know, and to show like the human behind that machine of, I'm gonna make this happen. I'm gonna make sure that my daughter gets found. I'm gonna save her. You know, I'm not gonna panic. I'm never gonna panic. I'm just gonna go from one point to the next, like a machine almost. You know, that was very real for me. Thank you.
I'm so glad you brought that scene up eventually too. There's so many standout beats in this movie. That particular one left me absolutely breathless. Really something else.
You know, that scene was written kind of in the midst of everything. And again, like this movie evolved, you know, and that scene in particular really stood out for me, because when it came to the day of shooting it, again, I talked to Isabel Myers, who played my daughter, and she's such a wonderful actress and such a wonderful collaborator. And I said, you know, this has to be real. You know, you can't be like, and we talked to the DP and I said, you know, you can't be like this angelic figure with this light around you. Like, I don't want people, I want people to, for a second, to go, wait a minute, is that her daughter sitting right next to her? Like again, to just like strip away all of the fluff and really just have that moment of like, wow, this is what I've wanted to say to my kid all this time, and I never could, you know, because we left it, you know, we didn't leave it on a good note, and I just want her to like know that I'm gonna do everything I can to get her back, to get her home, you know. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, you know.
So good. Before this gets drowned out by applause, if I could trouble you all to stay seated so Milla can zip out and go promote the movie elsewhere at another event. I'm going to say huge congratulations on this film. Really something else. Thank you for
so
being
much.
here tonight.
Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so happy you enjoyed it. And listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming. I really do.